So what I was saying was, people want to work with a coach and they want to train for a race. They think about workouts. They think about performance in sort of bigger units or blocks. But at the end of the day, the most successful athletes have a process. They have a system that they put in place. And so the whole product that we put out there at endurancenation.us/habits talks about some of the basic units about building a personal endurance system and what that means. It's something we've been doing with our athletes for a while, and I'm happy to formalize it and bring it to you, the larger audience. So you can learn more about that there. And this week's talk is actually sort of dovetails in a little bit with that. And we talk about how to tweak your week. Specifically, what are the changes we can make to your training week to create opportunity for you as an individual. Now, it's really important when we think about this and we talk about what it means. We talk about what it means to be successful, and we talk about what it means to sort of optimize for something. The real question is, what are we trying to optimize for? And at the end of the day, I don't think a lot of people really understand, what it is they're sort of optimizing for. And so when I think about the way things work for most people, I try and break it down for them, sort of in that quadrant mode. And the first, the first order of business is optimizing. It's just optimizing for time, right? How do we save you time? How do we make sure that all the things work for you and everything like that? Like, what's the process through which we work? Excuse me. The second axis that I think we work around for a lot of people, which they appreciate, right? We talk about that. That would be, at the end of the day, we're going to call that performance, okay? So people want to optimize for performance. I want to have better workouts. I want a better week. I want better Fridays. I want better Saturdays, better Sundays. What am I optimizing for here, right? The other side of this here that I think is super important that people don't necessarily talk about very, very much. I'm just going to do this here. Okay, we're going to call this one, I think you guys guessed it already, health, right? So not just health, not just fitness from a sport perspective, but from a health perspective, right? How do we make a healthier you? When I work with athletes around creating a positive system for them or better habits for them, a large part of that is just creating changes, small changes, that over time will create much better outcomes. So when someone wants to work on a year and they say, hey, this year I've picked, say, body composition is their challenge. I love that challenge. It's a bear of a challenge because it's so unique to each individual, but it's a really important challenge because if we can make a positive change in body composition, that has cascading impacts down the line, right? You help someone who's 45 or 46 or 50 or 55, you help them lose 20 or 30 pounds, just in terms of their overall life expectancy, forget performance, it's a huge change, right? So we also often optimize for health as well. And that's really important. And then the last piece, and I apologize in advance because these are like the many things that I can't draw. This is one of the worst things that I can't draw either, okay? And this is for other people. Sometimes they're little people in your life. Sometimes it's work. It could be something else. Who knows what it is? But there may be another factor in your life that is bigger than your training, bigger than you, bigger than your time. And that could be something social to you. It could be your family, whatever it is. So sometimes we're optimizing for athletes for that social component as well. So there's really 4 quadrants when we think about optimization and what we mean for athletes. I think one of the biggest pieces is really sort of helping athletes define what it is they're really optimizing for. So we talked this week about optimizing your basic training week. Take a look at these 4 quadrants and say, which one am I really optimizing for? Which one, if I optimize for that, makes other things go better, right? And so, one thing that we think about a lot here in my house, right? If, for example, my wife is also an athlete. She's an amazing everything else, but she's also an awesome athlete. And so for her, exercise is important, right? Just like it is for me, just like it is, I'm sure, for you as well. So when I'm optimizing my daily schedule, I could optimize and say, you know what? All I really care about here, all I really care about for me, because I'm super selfish, is, hey, I want to optimize for performance. Coach Patrick wants to be super fast, super strong, whatever. So I put that forward over everything else. When we pick one of these other areas, we're effectively cutting some of the other areas out. We're not reducing them entirely, but we're taking them down a notch, right? Which is really important. Well, in my space, I decided that's not a great idea because even though Coach Patrick may be super fast, guess what? That doesn't hold a lot of cachet with my family. It doesn't make things go well here around the house. It doesn't make for a happy place, right? So for me, I'm generally optimizing a great deal more around the social side. So my workouts end at a certain time because I have other commitments, right? My work ends at a certain time because I want to spend time with my family. So I'm optimizing for that. And I found, surprisingly enough, that when I compress the time I have available to do other items, I actually get them done very well. But you have to understand where it is. And I'll tell you, this didn't happen organically. This took a very long time for me to get in a place where I understood that, like, hey, if I optimize this, it's better, right? Strangely enough, and this is something we can talk about in another episode, my wife doesn't really mind so much. She appreciates that I optimize for that. She really wants me to optimize for my health. She wants me to be healthy. She doesn't care about the performance. She's not worried about, do I have enough time for X, Y, and Z? She's assuming I do. The family stuff for her is sort of a given because I'm already doing that for her. She wants me to optimize for health, right? Am I making choices about training, about sleep, about nutrition? Am I making choices that are going to make me sustainably healthy, right? So sometimes the optimization is something that's not even internal to you. It could be optimization from an external factor, someone who's trying to help you improve, or someone with whom you're connected that also wants to see that level of improvement, right? So it's really, really important that we get to the core of what it means to optimize your week. So I'll leave those 4 pieces out there just so you kind of get a sense for what those are. So we think about the week, and I love talking about weeks because I view them as sort of the fundamental building block of what a season really is. Okay. And not everyone necessarily agrees with me, but I do think it's kind of important to think of it. So when we start off with a whole season and we say, hey, this is my entire season, this is what's going to happen in my entirety, this is an entire block. We divide that season essentially up into different training blocks, right? So we have maybe like a winter training block, we've got a spring training block, we've got a race training block, we've got some sort of fall training block. And each of those, kind of falls into a different area in terms of emphasis, in terms of, focus points for us, in terms of how we train, whatever your target may be. We've got different levels of, I guess I want to say sort of, energy expenditure, I think, is the best way to think about it. Because if you think about expenditure in terms of time, in terms of training, et cetera, you've got different blocks. Well, each of these blocks, if we were just going to go ahead and say, let's pick one and let's zoom in on one, each of these blocks are broken down then into weeks. And I like to think about the week as the basic unit of time. I often give people a hard time about it because they act as though by the time they get to Monday, they've been completely reincarnated like the coyote from the Roadrunner and the Coyote cartoons, right? Like, get blown up on Saturday with some dynamite and turn around on Monday and you're fine, right? You're totally fine. Even though, obviously physiologically most of us are not. But so optimizing for that week really helps us create something that if we do it right the first time, if we can get this one version right, then there's multiple places across that training block where that works. Right? So if we can figure out how to invest that time appropriately now, we generate better improvements down the line, right? So let me give you a quick example. When we think about optimizing your week and what it means, for most people, identifying a space where they can successfully recover physically, and also optimize other areas, right? So there's a bit of a give and take here. So if we take the training out of the equation, we say, where's your rest day? What does your recovery look like? That's also an opportunity where you can perhaps spend more time at the office or do stuff that others, something else that matters to you, whatever that may be. So there's sort of this tension there that allows you, when we do take out that training, we can bring in something else, right? So first and foremost, when we think about a week, I'm trying to help people understand where is the best place for them to rest. Now, I wrote a training plan. I think the best day to rest is a certain day based on the workload that we have. But when I give you the training plan and you implement it, things look different, right? So you want to optimize your week, and we're trying to figure out where your rest day goes. Step 1 is to go back and take a look at the last 4 to 6 weeks, right? Most software, Final Surge, our partners over Final Surge, who are awesome. Shout out to them. You can go back and take a look at the last couple of weeks, and I encourage our athletes, I encourage you to do the same. Drag and drop your workouts. Don't just do Saturday's swim on Friday. Don't just do Thursday's run on Wednesday, but physically move it. It's important that you do that because we're starting to not only create the higher likelihood that that workout's going to happen, but more importantly, we're also creating a living record, not just from the data, but your intentions and then your results, right? So typically every Sunday night, we say, plan out the week. You plan out the week, we move things around, then we execute. You can go back and look at that. And so we can start to say, hey, in the last month, last 30 days, where did things work? Where did they not work? So you can look at the rest days you took already. Were they were the good rest days, bad rest days? You can look at the work that you did. Were there days where you were stronger on days when you were not, right? Let's look at days that you had to totally take off completely out of your control, right? The days that like work bubbled up or whatever it may be. looking at those three different trends, you can take a look at your schedule over the last couple of weeks and say, I can hypothesize that the best day off during this week is a certain time, right? So in your case, let's just say that Coach Patrick thinks, in a basic week, and we're drilling down from here even more. We drill down into that basic week. We say that basic week has 7 days in it. Oh my God. Did I get that right? Thank goodness, 7 days. I'm not so good with the numbers here in the drawing. So we look at it. Coach Patrick, I say, hey, you know what? I think Monday is the best rest day. Let's really kind of reboot each week. Sunday is never long enough anyway. I mean, seriously, who made Sunday also 24 hours? So let's extend that out a little bit more and give ourselves some more breathing room. You can have a Sunday, you can work out in the morning, you can have a day social, and then Monday, you can still have time to get your act together professionally, whatever, blah, 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 right? That's my bias. That's my, hey, I don't want stuff on Mondays because I want to be able to do all this extra stuff. But you go back and look at your training plan, and what may happen for you is that in your world, we think about, what this means for you. It may be that in your world, the way things work out, that actually Friday is a much better day for you. Okay. And it's better for you for a variety of reasons, right? So Monday, it turns out that at work, your biggest pressure is work. It turns out that at work on Monday, everyone else is crazy busy too. So you know what happens? Everybody leaves you alone. No one's bugging you. You can get your stuff done because everyone else is head down trying to get stuff done, right? So you get stuff done. Nobody bothers you. You can do what you need to do and everything works. Your friction comes at the end of the week when people have deadlines, or they're your own deadlines, or they're just deadlines in general where stuff needs to get done by Friday, got to turn it in, have to get it done, want to get it off the plate before the weekend, etc. And when we start thinking about what that means in terms of success, all of a sudden we run into problems simply because you get to the end of the week and everybody's piling stuff on you. So on Thursday, you look at your Friday, you say, Friday looks awesome, 5:00, quitting time, let's get out of here. And all of a sudden, all the stuff comes piling down on you, and it's stuff that you've got to move, you've got to respond to. So Friday ends up being super stressful, right? And super challenging from an energy perspective as well. And both of those elements are important to note simply because they also affect you physiologically. So after looking back over the numbers, we've discovered that your Friday is a better day off than your Monday, right? So we know that when we turn out and we say, you know what, you're right, Coach Patrick was wrong, my guess is wrong, your Fridays are better than your other days, then we need to move those workouts around accordingly to make sure that your Friday is an off day that matters, right? So I'll talk really briefly about what that means from a sport perspective. But before I'll let you go, if you do have questions, you can put them in the comment box. They'll show up here. I can answer them right away. If you do have questions about making changes to your weeks, habit creation, etc., happy to do that. So from a sport perspective, what happens? Well, early in the season, if we can go back up to the top here, take a look at this top area on the on the chart where I'm drawing those little fancy dots for you. When we look at earlier in the season, there's a lot of flexibility, right? So I'm going to say this is totally flexible. Okay. The further that we move along that spectrum to the right, the further and closer we get to race time over here, which is pink. I'm just going to call that not flex. All of a sudden, stuff matters, right? It really matters that we have the bike before the run if you're a triathlete. It really matters that we have swim and bike. It really matters that we stack back-to-back runs if you're an ultra runner, right? It really matters that we do like a Friday hard intense session on the bike followed by Saturday low aerobic sort of fat max time for you as a cyclist, right? That really matters because we're creating race-specific fitness in a deliberate way that's going to allow you to, build incrementally over this block of time, get stronger and fitter, right? We have flexibility earlier in the season because in many cases, your competition isn't really training. They're not that serious. That gives you an opportunity to get stronger on your own. And the flexibility built into the early part of the year is actually a nice to have, right? All of a sudden you say, oh, I missed my workout today, but it's okay. I can catch back up later because I can modify stuff because my week is flexible. The further on the spectrum that we work, the closer to your race, the less flexible you get, which is why it's really important early in the season to define what a successful week is for you so that we can build when we get to this race prep time here, when we show up here in June, July, or August, or about to start, we can start with the week that works well for you and build the plan to suit that instead of you taking a template plan and saying, I wonder if this is going to work. The Groundhog Day to come back, maybe this will work. And when we know that you have some core fundamental rules in your system that define where you can be successful as an athlete, as a human, as a parent, as a professional, and we should take all of that into account when we're making decisions about how we're going to design your training week. Once you have an optimized week, it's something that you want to carry forward. Not all weeks work the same. There's weeks that work better in the winter than later, and that could just be due to seasonality of your employment. It could be due to seasonality of your family, your kids, or just the access you have to training, whatever that may be. So there's other extenuating factors that impact it. But at the end of the day, at least knowing what each of these, if there's 4 blocks in your year, then we get 4 different weeks, right? If you can have 4 different weekly templates that you know work for you at the end of your season, that's a huge advantage to you, right? Because when we start next season, you can say, oh, it's winter time. I'm going to pull out my winter weekly template, not the training plan yet. This is the template. This is what everything fits into. And I'm going to put this plan into this week, start implementing, in Endurance Nation, we do new plans every year. I'm going to implement this new plan into this week. You're already going to have better outcomes because we're eliminating the friction. And what I mean by friction is, what is the stuff that happens, right? So you have missed workouts, so we're not getting the benefit of how the sessions are meant to be stacked. You've got friction between work and home, right? So you're trying to train and you're trying to fit that in between the space between where life is at work and life is at home. Somebody loses in that scenario. It could be your family, it could be your work. Either way, the person who's losing doesn't like it because we don't like to lose. And it's because of the friction that you have with your existing week. So if we can take that friction out, then you don't even have to have those conversations. You're just not going to put that workout on the schedule on a Friday because you know it shouldn't be there, because you know picking up the kids from school on Friday is really, really important, right? Sets the tone for the rest of the weekend. You screw up a Tuesday, who cares? It's Tuesday, right? You got, it's just it, But if you mess up a Friday, all weekend, Daddy forgot to pick me up at school or whatever. I have no idea. Not like I know anybody who's ever left their kid at daycare for too long. Dear God, I hope they don't ever find this internet video. So when you think about that kind of level of influence, it's really important that we do optimize and we start forward with that, because once you set this into place, we start to reap those benefits overall, where we say, whatever quadrant you focused on, there's positivity that bleeds across all. So if we optimize for that 4th quadrant, if we optimize down here for the social, family, work, if that truly is your high-end stuff and you get that right, the reduction of stress, well, that benefits the health side of things, right? In terms of time, it unlocks time, right? I know some of you have experienced this. When the family is happy and things are working well at home, and you look at your Monday and you're like, oh man, I got to do this, workout Monday morning. It's tough between getting it done and the kids. And your spouse will say, hey, this weekend was so awesome, inside their head. I'll take the kids tomorrow. You can do that session. It unlocks time for you, right? And ultimately, you get all of that right. You get that support of everybody. All of a sudden, you've also unlocked some performance. I'm not talking about recruiting new types of mitochondria to deliver oxygen to your muscles and make you stronger and faster. But I am saying that you do unlock some other areas there, right? Which I think is really important and makes a big difference. All right, I'll get off my soapbox. We've got a question here from Vic, and then I will wrap things up. Vic, thanks so much in advance for writing. I'm going to take a sip and read here, and I'm going to put it in the comment section as well, so people can see it as well. Good thing you're an incredible typer, Vic. Sometimes I put comments up and people are like, spell check, my spelling. All right, let's take a look while I sip my coffee. Ooh, yeah. This is a great question. I love this question, Vic, and thank you so much. And for those of you who don't know Vic, Vic is working on body composition, but all things on Vic are large. Most importantly, his heart. He is just an incredible human being, and so fortunate to have known you for so long. Right, health versus performance. Where do you find yourself on the spectrum, and how do you optimize when you're trying to choose both? I think the pendulum swings across the course of that season. So if we go back to that other chart here, and we talked about how the different blocks break out earlier in the season, in this blue chart here, and earlier in the season, basically we're spending a lot of time, doing different types of intensity work, and we're not doing the volume that's accompanied typically in race season and so on. This is a great time of year to focus on those fundamentals, right? Food choice, body composition, workouts that support that. So perhaps in Endurance Nation, we'd like to do a lot of intensity, but for you, it may actually be more aerobic work that's a better solution at that time of year. As we move in season, we can be a little, I don't say loose, but maybe a little more liberal with our food choices and so on, because we're starting to train with volume. And now we're doing 3-4 hour rides on the weekend. We need fuel, right? We need to eat. We need to take care of our body. There has to be some sustainability, right? And so at that time, our workouts, the situation we move to later in the season, we can say go to this green area here, number 2. We'll call this number 2. When we get to area number 2, all of a sudden it's like, hey, we need food to support these workouts, right? And then in phase 3, here with our our kind of three bullets here. In phase 3, all we're thinking about here is what's the race specific food, how to get my nutrition plan put together. And in many cases, the volume of what you're training for, again, dictates the caloric needs of your body. And if you're just eating generally clean and taking care of yourself, you see some positive benefits there. I think the key here when I'm sort of putting out to you is the periodization of your focus. So early in the season, in that level 1 section, or perhaps even level 4 when we've ended the season and we're kind of capturing and moving on to next year, those are the 2 most important times. And I would say your holistic total body composition goal should take priority, right? So if I can help you lose 5 or 10 pounds now in January, February, March, that's going to pay dividends in July, August, September. If I'm trying to have you lose weight as you're trying to get ready for a race, those are oppositional goals, and it becomes really challenging, right? Where you're unable to perform at what your true level of fitness is because we're restricting calories or restricting fluid or whatever that may be. And that generally leads to not only poor sessions at some point in time, but also poor recovery between sessions. And we're trying to put these weeks together. It becomes really challenging. Also, I would say just one last thought on this, and thank you so much for sharing, Vic. One last thought on this is just, as you think about managing something like body composition, that in and of itself is a system, right? Like managing body composition when you're 30, different than when you're 50, different than when you're 70. What does that look like? And so you have a basic system, and you can totally sort of have that functional system, and then it evolves over time, right? So as we get older, we need more strength training because having more muscle mass actually helps us burn more calories. And we can't just do tons and tons of running because our joints aren't as young as they used to be. So our system, once we have it, kind of evolves, right? So, but I would say that sometimes strategic intervention does matter, right? So part of one of the challenges that people have with body composition is they just haven't identified the 2, 3, 4, whatever things that really work for you, right? And so sometimes having a conversation with a coach, with a registered dietitian, with someone else outside of you, about what you're doing, just to even say it publicly can make a big difference, right? So like this year, for example, let's say you decide to cut out gluten. You're like, I'm going to try getting rid of all this gluten thing. What happens? You can try it, see how it works, analyze it. Did it work? Did it not work for you? How did it go, right? Maybe you're going to go vegetarian, right? Or maybe you're going to cut out food. Maybe it's a little smaller of a change. I'm going to cut out sugar and candy sort of late at night, or the salt stuff late at night. I'm going to prioritize other stuff. Those choices are basic and simple and can be tracked. When we get into bigger scale changes, right, when you're trying to lose significant amounts of weight, when people want to lose 50, 100 pounds or whatever, then I definitely recommend that you need to have some sort of a combined approach where we're incorporating both aerobic activity and strength training, and there is some kind of third party that's advising you in making healthy choices. We can all lose weight, but not all of us can lose it sustainably and in a healthy way. So you have to be super careful with that. Okay. Awesome stuff. Thank you so much for joining. All right, folks, that's it for this week's broadcast. I hope you enjoyed it. There's a chance to talk a little bit about tweaking your week, but I subtly worked in the new content piece that I put out there, a free PDF. You can find it at endurancenation.us/habits, where we're starting the conversation now, and we'll continue moving forward about the hidden building blocks that Endurance Nation uses to help our athletes become sustainably successful over time by identifying key habits that they can use to make themselves more efficient, more effective, and just better at being themselves, whether it's as an athlete or as a human or professionally or whatever it may be, and help them build a system that they can then iterate and get better at over time, which just in and of itself, like I talked about today, unlocks more benefits. Something we've been doing for a long time, but I'm really pleased to bring it to a broader audience. So check it out. If you think someone else could benefit from it, please share out that link as well. Otherwise, I will be back next week with another talk. I do not know what next Friday's 15-minute topic is, but you can always message me here on Facebook or go ahead and peek at the event schedule ahead and you'll learn more. Thanks so much for tuning in. Again, for those of you watching this later on YouTube, it's at facebook.com/Endurance Nation. You can get that schedule, or you can find us online at endurancenation.us. You can go to our calendar. You can see all of our events, all the good stuff happening. Thanks for tuning in. I look forward to catching up with you next week. Until then, have a fantastic weekend and stay healthy and safe out there. See you.